This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. Today, I've got with us Mr. George Grombacher. George is awesome. We've exchanged several podcast episodes before on his previous podcast and my previous podcast, so I feel like I'm welcoming him back, an old friend. Thanks, George, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Travis.
Quick intro to you. He's a 20-year financial industry veteran, podcaster, writer, speaker. George is working to help people get better at money and life how they want. He spent 10 years with the Fortune 100 company as an advisor, as well as in leadership positions where he impacted thousands of people and developed training curriculums. He's a president of Financial Consulting Professionals, the founder and chief community officer of Money Alignment Academy, and the host of the Lifeblood podcast. George is honored to have been named to Investopedia's list of the top 100 most influential financial advisors. He's the husband to Emily and dad to James and Jack, and I think that last line is the most important. So thanks for being on the show, and tell us, a little bit about how did you get here? Like just a little of the backstory of how you got into the industry, why you want to help people with employee financial wellness.
Yeah, my origin story, it's probably not dissimilar to a lot of people that found their way into the business. I grew up in northern Minnesota. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up. I went to Valparaiso University in Indiana, thought I'd do like pre-law and then go to law school, not because I wanted to be an attorney, just because I thought, okay, I'll get to wear a suit and it's a mildly respected career and you can earn an income from it. Moved down to Arizona because my dad had been down here for 20 years. So growing up, I would go and visit and realized that water does not naturally freeze down here. So I thought, why not move to Arizona? Went to my fraternity's alumni chapter meeting and met somebody who said, well, why don't you come talk to me about New York life? I said, sure, I got nothing else going on. And so my grandfather had spent 30 years with New York Life. By the time I was old enough, he had retired, so I never really knew what he did. But I grew up coloring on New York Life paper. And so that's how I got into the business. I just literally happened into it, that the person I met at this random meeting worked at New York Life. I had familiarity with it, and it sounded like something I could do. So,
yeah, I love random meeting, right? There's nothing that really is random about our life, I don't think, but that's pretty amazing that he was the one that introduced you, yet you grew up coloring on New York Life paper your whole, experience as a kid. That's pretty fantastic. And then what? I mean, how did you go from New York Life to what you're doing today? Why the spin off into doing these other programs, projects, businesses to help people?
Yeah, no, so I spent 7 years as an agent with New York Life in Scottsdale, Arizona. And New York Life is such a great company. And whether it's a great idea or a terrible one, when you do well in sales, they say, oh, you know what, you should be in management. So they tried to get me to go into management for a really long time. But early in my career, I had very little knowledge of anything, life or business or anything like that. So I was essentially the prospecting arm for a more senior advisor. And we did comprehensive financial planning. Well, at least that's really what we called it. Looking back on that, maybe not so much, but we did planning for business owners. And so I would go out and find the clients, and then Mike would do the planning. And it worked great for a long time. And then I finally did make the decision that I wanted to go into management. I thought that was the career that I really wanted to pursue. And so at the age of 29, I guess, 28, 29, I moved to Orange County, California, which that's a whole nother, I'm probably not going to tell you that whole story today because it's a long one, to pursue management. And had a lot of success doing that. And all told, I did management between New York Life and Mass Mutual for, I think, 6 years. And that was extremely rewarding, extremely challenging because, once you learn how to do, selling and financial advisory stuff, well, then all of a sudden, now I need to be a recruiter, a manager, a trainer, a developer, all of those things, which is just totally different skill sets. But I found I really did have a lot of success in those roles, but for a variety of reasons. I ended up back in Arizona instead of California. I met my now wife at New York Life right when I started. And so Emily and I are still married and have a family now. she was the recruiter for the New York Life office out there. But I retired from management. And so I really thought, okay, 7 years as an agent and now 6 years in management, where do I fit into financial services, if even at all? And looking back on that, Travis, I think that you know this, that when you work for a big financial company like NML or Mass or New York Life or Guardian, a lot of the older advisors will say, you're not in the business until you deliver a death claim, and you just kind of won't get it. And I delivered a lot, and I realize the impact, and I appreciate the impact. It's profound. It's life changing, but it didn't do a lot for me, honestly. So I never, after 13 years of really hustling and hitting it super hard and having success, I never really felt like it was my identity. In fact, kind of the opposite. I never really liked telling people at parties that I was a financial advisor or financial services professional, or whatever term that you're interested in using. I kind of shied away from that. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Not necessarily only because, just more because of sort of core beliefs that I had personally about money going around in my head. So long story short, I went to work for an RIA that did retirement planning, or did 401k planning, because that's what I decided on. So I find the fact that Americans are bad at saving money and we're crappy at saving money for retirement to be intellectually interesting, fascinating. It's a lot of behavioral finance type stuff. And so that's really what I decided to focus on. And so now, over the past 7 years, give or take, going on 8, I've started my own RIA. I launched Money Alignment Academy out of what I really consider to be necessity, because people just are not getting enough of financial literacy or financial wellness, whatever term you want to use. We're just not getting enough, and it's not moving the needle to actually be changing behaviors. And so now I can proudly say that I'm very much in the business. I work in employee financial wellness. I'm very, very passionate about the work. I find it to be interesting and necessary. So that was a lot to dump on you there, but maybe that's a good place to pause.
Oh man, that's great. No, I was following your career the way I was following my career, going, yep, I started with Northwestern Mutual when you were at New York Life, and I got really good at things. And, I actually did deliver my first death claim. It was my own father's death claim that I processed. And I don't even know if I've ever shared that story with you, but that kind of repelled me from the business, because I'm like, yeah, oh my goodness, I can't deal with this. Like, the very first experience was my own family. And in some ways it made me more convicted, but it also subconsciously really pushed me into the direction I'm in now. But yeah, I almost moved my family to Newport Beach, California for a management position. Like, we were throwing all of our marbles into this idea that NML was great and they were going to carry me and they were going to help me build some teams. Essentially, I would recruit for them, and still figure out how to produce in a totally different market. So my hat's off to you. We actually decided we were going to do it. And then the next day we're like, actually, we slept on it, and no. But that really impacted the rest of my career. And I can see how, you've really had to deal with that. And we're going to talk about balance. That's the whole point of this podcast. But knowing that you were recruiting, managing, doing all these other things, I am going to tap into that too. And we're going to talk a little bit about it, which brings up, the first question that I'd like to dish out to you. And that is, if you could tell us your definition of balance, what is it? What is your definition of balance?
I like to think about balance like rhythm. And, it's obviously never going to be, if it's professional, if it's personal, and then family, it's never going to be 33% for me anyway. And I just know that life throws stuff at you. And so I sort of feel like I'm going with the flow and trying to find the right rhythm in my life. And sometimes the right rhythm is going to be really focused on the career. Sometimes it's going to be way more family stuff and then put the career aside. And sometimes it's going to be, well, perhaps at some point in the future, it will be, because I have a 4 and a 1-year-old. I don't need to talk to you about parenting and the challenges of time there, Travis. But so that's how I like to think about it, is just finding the right rhythm in life. Um, and I like to think that I am tuned in emotionally and spiritually and certainly physically, and I'm super mindful of those elements of my life, and make sure that I'm not getting too high or too low. I've always been pretty well kind of an even keel guy, but super mindful of my diet and my exercise routine, and making sure that I am mindful of my mental health as well. So I really, just like everybody should, and I do should people, I should all over people, that you need to be mindful of this stuff, because if you're not, then you're not going to be showing up the right way, right? So I need to make sure
Yeah.
that I am feeling strong and healthy and operating at as close to 100% as I possibly can.
Yeah, I love that. I love the rhythm idea. It sounds like you've got some music background. Have we talked about this? Do you have a music background? You play a little bit?
Well, I love music, Travis, and as a matter of fact, I've just been exploring writing song lyrics. But no, I do not. I love singing. I guess that
Nice.
counts. Like I
Yeah,
dominate karaoke.
Come on, come on. No, no,
Yes.
obviously, my kids are all in choir. That's it. It's a musical instrument. It's made by God, not by man. And, it's internal. And I think that's absolutely, music making, of course. I think that's great. Yeah. And I love all these different analogies that people explain. Maybe it's like riding a bike, or maybe it's, rhythm, or for me, I settled on, the cover of the book of this unequilibrium, because as you mentioned, sometimes the focus is here, sometimes the focus is there, and knowing that right balance and achieving it is crucial. So looking at, your days, we'll talk firstly your days in captive agencies or at the BD, New York Life, Mass Mutual, as you were the recruiter, the manager, and the producer. That I know I have clients who are there and they would appreciate, what you saw. But what, as you were in that space, put yourself back there in Orange County, California, again, 29, and, to 35, where you were in those roles. What did you see as some of the biggest issues for the other advisors that you were recruiting, that you were managing? We're going to start there, and then we'll get into like how you were dealing with it. But what did you see as some of those biggest issues for advisors to achieve balance?
Yeah, that's a heavy lift right there. So do you want me to talk on people that are new advisors to the business, or that are seasoned advisors?
Your call, man. I think anybody who's listening to this they're going to be all over the place on, they're new to the industry. They've got some experience. I think talking to both segments would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So I believe that a career in financial services is both incredibly rewarding and incredibly challenging. It's terribly awesome and awesomely terrible. But I really believe that going to work with a company like New York Life or Mass Mutual or Northwestern Mutual, any career agency, and I can't speak to getting out of the gate with a company like Merrill or Schwab because I just don't know anything about that. But going to work at a career shop like New York Life, let's just use them as an example because that's where I have the most experience. What is important is to have really clear boundaries, because a lot of the time, if I'm a new advisor, I'm not entrepreneurial, because I'm probably potentially coming, if I'm coming from a W-2 environment or an employee-employer relationship, I just don't know how to manage my time. And that's not a ding on anybody, just because, I'm not saying you can't do it, because you'll learn how to do it if you're going to be successful. But odds are you just don't have that skill set. So you need a little bit of help and training in how to manage your time and how to balance your time and how to set up boundaries to say no to certain things, say yes to other things, just to make sure that you are getting everything done that you need to get done, because you don't have time. That clock is ticking on your contract, and you need to be prospecting like crazy. You need to be selling, and it just all needs to happen now. So you need to be learning on the fly. So I think you're going to be out of whack if you want 50% of your time family and 50% of your time the business, I think that's probably, you're going to have a hard time with that. You're probably going to be more heavy getting your business launched in the early years, certainly the first 6 months, year. And if you get over that hump, then you'll probably be achieving a little bit more equity from a balance standpoint, or more time available to you outside of your business. But early on, I think that really trusting that process and trusting the system. And if you're not in an environment where you're working with somebody that you really feel can help you to get there, then you probably made a mistake. But odds are you're in an environment and you're working with a manager or whoever it might be, a mentor, that's going to help you to get to where you want to go. And you need to trust in and rely in what these companies are doing and teaching you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was talking just today about on a different podcast, being interviewed myself about productivity, and productivity is fantastic. I think is the focus in so many other companies. But when you have now the ability to have that personal freedom to manage your own time, productivity is great. But without those boundaries, you really are going to struggle, because you'll want to continue to put in more time and more time into the business, especially with the culture of selling, a financial product, life insurance, mutual funds, whatever it is that you're doing at the very beginning in this career, if that's the doors you come in through. Obviously, coming in through the door of an RIA, maybe you're a CFP already, a different story, but still same principle. I can see that still the focus on creating financial plans, really focusing on service to the client as the excuse to keep working. Did you see, my experience with Northwestern and my observation with other, big, BDs out there, that the culture almost wanted you to work nights and weekends those first 5 years until you could make it. Did you see that being a help or a hindrance on those new advisors?
Yeah, it's a really it's a really good question, and I think an important one. So one of the things that's so cool about the business, and I'm going to try to answer the question here in a second. One of the things that's so cool about the business is that there's a million different ways to do it, right? I get to choose what products I want to work with, and I can work with anybody, right? I can work with single dads. I can work with business owners. I can, the sky is the limit, which is super neat, but that's a recipe for disaster, because we need to be focused. And the more focused that you can be and really understand what you decided to focus on, and then to do that every day and do it hard, that's what's going to help you to be successful. The advisors that come into the business and then are focused on being comprehensive financial planners right away, and they need to know everything about every product and all the riders and how that works, you're not going to be in the business for very long. You need to make sales. You need to be helping people. And by making sales, you are helping people, because odds are they would not be buying these products if you were not approaching them. But that's going to keep you in the business. That's going to earn you a living, because we need to pay our bills, because those don't stop coming just because now I'm in an entrepreneurial environment. So that these managers develop cults of personality a lot of the time, which is amazing. There's a lot of really talented people that I've worked with over the years. And they inspire folks to work on Saturday mornings or on Sundays and to go knock on doors in neighborhoods, whatever it is. That might be what's necessary for a while to make a career in at a shop like that. Unless you have an amazing natural market, or unless you have some kind of an amazing lead flow source, that might be what's required. There are outliers out there, Travis, and I'd be curious to know what the retention rates are of these firms these days, and how they're doing and all that good stuff. But it does require. And so no, as I'm talking, I'm sort of remembering back now, because I didn't work on Friday afternoons my entire career as an agent. So, and I very rarely worked on Saturdays. I was very interested in going out and going to happy hour a lot of nights during the week. So, so the answer to that question is it kind of depends. But
Yeah.
I just think that you need to, I think that you need to be honest with yourself and know yourself and be really quick to make a pivot. If you're having success and you find that you don't need to be working on Saturdays, well, then stop working on Saturdays. But if you're just getting started and you're not getting the traction you're getting from, working 9 to 5 or whatever, well, then you need to put in more time.
Yeah. And obviously that is a big depends, right? And I love how you talked about it. Like there are, very great personalities, unfortunately, and they are attracted into and recruited into management because they did well, and they're going to be put up as the examples, like you were, like I almost did. And that desire then to feed this industry with great talent and make them successful sometimes doesn't have, Saturday, Sunday boundaries. But, what I found is that, it was the Saturday, Sunday, work nights and weekends, long hours for, 5, maybe 10 years. And I saw all these cool graphs that would show my income increasing and renewals and all these things, right? I know it brings you back, but that's how you get sold on. I'm like, oh, multiple streams of income. This is what I want to do. And I want to help people. And so, it's going to happen. But I interviewed a lot of people after my father passed away. He was 49. I've talked about it on the show. He passed away and he was my first death claim. And when I came back to the office, I had a different, I had different eyes about me. I started asking agents who'd been in the business for 30 years, hey, so tell me about your, calendar and how you're doing things. And they're still working 50, 60-hour weeks. And that's what didn't add up. I'm like, wait, this doesn't make sense. You do really well, and then they put you in management, and then you have more to deal with, and then you've got clients, 300, 400 clients, and you're working this all on your own. And so I just didn't make sense of it all. In fact, I think that's what made me decide that I was going to leave, because it must be this culture. It must be the BD, right? And once I left, I was now saddled with even more time strapped issues of, well, I got to get a logo. I've got to figure out my business. Where am I going to house my office? What about my servicing? Who's going to do my underwriting? And And all of a sudden, I created a bigger problem that I thought I was leaving. Now, you've had that experience. You've left, the BD world, and now you're doing several things. You are an entrepreneur at heart. I can tell, like, this just runs through your veins, and you're doing fantastic things. And you've started, several, you've got the Financial Consulting Professionals, Money Alignment Academy, the podcast, Lifeblood Podcast. You're doing all these different things. So as a true entrepreneur, because it is entrepreneurial if you're in the BD and you're running on your own time, but now as a true entrepreneur, looking back at your previous experience and the experience that you're having now, what are your biggest issues? What are your biggest challenges and concerns with balance?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the struggle is real. There's no two ways about that. So when I made the decision to go into management, I knew that I was going to hate being in management, and I knew that I was going to hate the bureaucracy and the politics. And I was right. It was awful. I hated it probably more than I expected to. And I knew that I wasn't long for the world of the compliance environment. I do the podcast. I do a ton of writing. I'm writing books. So that just wouldn't fly. There's no doing a podcast working with a lot of those companies. So a function of, or figuring out what balance is. And I also think, I just wanted to touch on something really quick, that what you're talking about, somebody that's been in the business for 20 years and they're still working their butts off, or they're working all these hours or whatever. That's just, to me, somebody that they don't understand how their time works, and they waste an enormous amount of time. I love the stories about how top advisors will say, okay, I need to start putting boundaries on this and cutting my work hours from 60 to 50. And they do it, and their production just explodes. They say, whoa, I want to do 40, 30, 20. And their production just keeps going up and up and up. So if you're capable of running a financial services practice, you're probably a pretty smart person, but you're just not. You are not putting parameters around your time. It's the whole Parkinson's law, right? Time and work will either expand or contract to fill the amount available for its completion. So if I give myself 24 hours to make 20 phone calls or whatever, it's going to take me 24 hours. But if I give myself 2 hours to do it, it's going to get done. It's like every morning, everybody's got some kind of a morning routine, right? So if normally I get it done in 2 hours, well, if my alarm doesn't go off and I only have 30 minutes, I'm still probably going to get most of it done. So that has been my experience. Getting married, having one kid, having two kids, having a very dynamic professional wife who's got her career, and managing all of it has given me less time. And I am getting a lot done. So truly talking about boundaries and understanding what your activities are that you have to be doing to keep everything moving in every aspect of your life and your business, being super mindful of those and intentional about them, and then figuring it out. So for me with the podcast, I endeavor to not do any podcast stuff during regular work hours. So I get up at 4:15 in the morning. I exercise, and I could take you through my routine or whatever if you want, but I'll record 3 podcasts at 6 a.m. my time, 6:30 my time, and 7:30 my time. And I do that 4 days a week. So just do the math there. So I'm doing 12 podcasts before the day even starts in the week. And then I'll wrap up podcast stuff in the evenings if I need to. So that's just one aspect of it. Now, I do a lot of podcasts, so that's a whole nother animal. But just to give you a sense of that, I think that we are all capable of squeezing more in than we're doing. It's like our minds wander 50% of the time as it is. So just being brutally honest with yourself and ruthless with how it is that you're spending your time and your attention, that's probably a pretty good start.
Yeah. When you say, I do a lot of podcasts, no, you do a ton of podcasts like that. I know, like I'm on podcasts weekly. I am recording. That is absolutely a ton. That is, I was going to say insane, but it's not. Like that is just incredibly disciplined for you to get up, do those things and have it done. You know, I do most of my podcast interviews on Friday morning so I can have my week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where I do most of my business. This is kind of fun for me. Friday morning, then I either have done a bike ride in the morning or I'm going to do a bike ride afterwards. It's just kind of my time. But what you said there is so incredible. Like doing less, do less. Don't do it all, but have those boundaries. Be intentional. Like your example of doing the podcast is crucial. Like having this intent and then carrying it out. I tell people all the time when I wrote this book, Achieving Balance, I didn't work more than my 30-hour weeks to write the book. Like that goes against my nature. It goes against my intention of helping others have balance. So I'm not going to work 90 hours just to get the book done. That doesn't mean though, that there weren't times throughout that period where I got up really early and knocked out my chapters. Chapter 1 took me like 2 months to write. I didn't have it all completely dictated out like I did the other chapters. And that was really personal to me in the book to be able to write that out. So I spent more time doing it, but I made an exception, to get up early and knock that out before work. So I like that you mentioned that yourself and some of those things that you're doing. For those that are struggling, those are they're having a really difficult time trying to do less. They are trying to be intentional. But they're just not carrying it through. I mean, you've been in the management role, you've been in the recruiting space, and maybe they are newer advisors, or maybe they're more experienced advisors that just never got it figured out. They're like my people that I was interviewing, and they're still working 50, 60 hours. What's something that you've learned throughout your experience being in this field that is helpful for them to maybe start making that change?
Yeah, I think that anytime we find ourselves in a rut or plateauing or just not enjoying whatever, just things are not going awesome. I am discontented with what's going on. For me, it literally took me probably 16 years in the business. And I think it was getting married and having a kid is when I really started to explore, because I was tired all the time and I was just struggling, and I was still working super hard. But it was very much a slog or a grind. It was like I was fighting. And I I can't really point to necessarily what it was that caused me to start doing the work, but what really helped me was examining what my personal core beliefs were about money and going and doing that work. What my core beliefs were about whether or not I was worthy of the level of success that I really wanted, whether or not I was deserving of the levels of success that I really wanted. Because you can want something intellectually, but if you don't really believe it deep down inside, then it's just not going to work out for you. You are not aligned. And so I needed to go back and literally went back and found things that I was ashamed of from when I was 1, 2, 3, all the way to 40 years old. Went through those experiences, went through things I was embarrassed of, went through different things. When I think about money, people with money does blank. Going through exercises like that about your core beliefs about money, because it's all an operating system and it's running in the background and it's influencing every aspect of what you're doing just unconsciously, which is way more powerful than our conscious mind. So there's not a strategy or a tactic that is going to serve you if your operating system is not correct. And so it took me a long time. Maybe it was just, when the student's ready, the teacher is going to appear kind of a thing. But that was it for me, was I recognized and realized, okay, I need to really dig into myself and do this work and to start uncovering all those things that I was just talking about and then work through them. And once I did that, I really feel like it only took 20 years in the business, Travis, but really feel like now I am all of those things, absolutely worthy of having all the success that I want and deserving, and feel like I am the guy that can have the impact that I'm interested in having. And that for me has been really the missing link or the key. So dig into limiting beliefs. Was what you're going to find when you start searching for that in your favorite search engine. It's all about changing negative ones. There's not too many examples of, how can I accentuate the positive core beliefs that I have? Because we're all messed up in some form or fashion, just from when we were a kid in those experiences. And so going back and sort of unwinding those has been the biggest thing probably that I've ever done.
Good for you. I love that. And I appreciate you being open and honest and vulnerable about that. And what I, heard from you is what you're saying is when your ideas and thoughts aren't aligned, especially around money, you're going to really struggle to then want to manage your time. Like there's a connector there. And I saw that. I've seen that. I teach people the psychological aspects of money, advisors, all the time because they struggle with it too. And a lot of times, we are attracted to an industry or something that we want to be a part of that's greater than us because deep down inside subconsciously, there are things that we want to change. I was attracted to be a financial advisor because I grew up in a home with a lot of kids and, the home that I have, happy home. But it seemed like money was always a arguing topic and it was a big problem. And I went so far as to do a PhD on the subject and try to figure this out with couples and families. And so I definitely has brought me to this industry. But I think that's interesting that you bring up, especially for advisors, get okay with your limiting beliefs around money, understand them, going through that exercise that you just talked about, all the things you're ashamed of, embarrassed of. What a great exercise to begin. I do like to add that, I'm very strengths based. So I think it's good. We'll focus on limiting beliefs. I have conversations with advisors every single day about their limiting beliefs, but also then focus on, what is it that you come in that's good? Like where are your strengths? How can you add to this equation? So I push back a little bit on that and say, there's probably some great things that we can do with the strengths that we do have. But those should not be overlooked. These limiting beliefs should not be overlooked in the overall equation of moving forward. So I kind of want to focus in on the alignment, because that's really what you and I are talking about right now. And it works really well with what you do for people, but also for advisors, to help them, have greater balance with your, Money Alignment Academy. Tell us, that it seems to be, at least the wording that you're talking about here, George, is you seem to be alluding that this is kind of what you do for other people, right? So maybe talk to us a little bit about how you help advisors with the Money Alignment Academy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I 100% agree. It's important to focus on your strengths for sure, and double down on those 100%. So you are correct. So when I started doing 401k plans, I just was amazed at the opaqueness of it. This was, 8 years ago or so. I'm like, nobody knows how much this thing costs. Advisors are charging a boatload of money, and they're doing very, very, very little. So nobody knows how much it costs, but it's super expensive, and most of them are phoning it in. So I think that there are a lot of advisors out there. Probably the majority of 401k plans, the vast majority are, if there is a financial advisor, odds are it's with a financial advisor that only has a couple of plans. So there's just not that many advisors out there that are only focused on 401k plans, which just doesn't lend itself for the employees actually getting the level of service that I think that they actually need. So realities are that something like 80%, maybe 90% of Americans will never interact with a financial advisor. And the only investing that they maybe will ever do outside of GameStop and Dogecoin these days will be through their 401k. And so it's just an enormous opportunity from my perspective to be adding a little bit more into that equation. And it's super exciting to me that there are a lot of companies that are sort of piling into the financial wellness space. And it's super exciting that the great big record keepers out there are also doing that. That being said, you remember the Facebook movie, Travis, with the Mark Zuckerberg character was in the deposition across the boardroom table from the Winklevoss twins and the other guy. And they were accusing him of stealing the idea for Facebook. And the Zuckerberg character gets pissed off. He says, if you were the inventors of Facebook, then you would have invented Facebook, right? Well, I think if these big financial companies were actually capable of helping people to be financially successful, then they would have been helping people to be financially successful. I just don't think that these giant companies are actually capable of helping everyday rank and file employees take advantage of 401k and successfully implement it into their overall financial world. I also think that the majority of advisors out there want to do an awesome job for all of the employees that are part of the companies that they're serving. They just lack the tools to be able to do it, or the time, or the expertise, or just there's a million reasons why it doesn't happen. So what Money Alignment Academy is designed to do is to be an add-on to, let's just say that they're with Fidelity. So Fidelity is a great platform. They've got great education. You add Money Alignment Academy on top of it, and the idea is it's financial literacy in a much more accessible, easy to digest, real world fashion. So it's a series of online courses. It's what I refer to as community events, which are you're able to take and bring in at the actual local level of the company for employees to engage in things dealing with money without expressly talking about money all the time. Because if we were just talking about money all the time, and that's one of the challenges too for a financial advisor trying to do 401k education or financial education, if they're trying to show up there on a quarterly basis and talk about investing, the employees are going to have a mutiny and they're going to be sick of seeing even me. So we need to be talking about different stuff. So.
Love it. So, as an advisor, if I'm out there trying to do, comprehensive financial advice and planning, there's so many things I've got to be worrying about. Being a 401k specialist is not one of them. It's definitely not something that I'm going to think, gee, I'm going to be the 401k specialist here. I've been in the industry for several years, and I'm smart enough, but one could. But having something like Money Alignment Academy as a partner, how would that look like for an advisor who wants to leverage their time and thus have greater balance on the business side? How could that work advantageously for them?
So what Money Alignment Academy is, it's simply an educational platform. It's not a financial product. It's all educationally based. It's not giving investment advice or anything like that. So there's courses that are super easy to understand, like get out of debt, get a budget, saving and investing, retire happily, which are easy to understand what people are getting into when they take the courses. And I have academy partners. I have academy partners who are CPAs, who are attorneys, who are financial advisors, who are employee benefit professionals, who are interested in offering employee financial wellness to their clients without actually having to do all of the employee financial wellness. And so I partner with those advisors, and they simply offer it and plug it into their existing client relationships. Helps them with prospecting, helps them with lead generation, because when people are going through the Money Alignment Academy content and engaging with it, there are always needs that come out of it. If it's an insurance product that people want, or if it's a college savings account, or if it's financial planning, whatever it might be, the employee raises their hand, and then the lead goes right back to the advisor that I'm working with. So
Great. So it could be used as a value add, coming in, serving these companies that you're doing for OK One work with, and you've got that relationship to really help, all of the employees there at the business. And then when they need help, they're getting that hand raised coming right back to them. That's an excellent idea. In fact, just behind the curtain, I like you, I teamed up with a gentleman at Northwestern, and, he was the veteran and I was the newbie, and I was hitting it hard. And we would do exactly this. We would actually come into a 401k, and he would have the health part and the retirement plan put in place. And a lot of times I was the education person. I was spending my time doing all these one-offs and having time with each of these, employees that a lot of times, some of them, they did need the education, but they weren't interested in, bigger plans. And so I was weeding out the ones who were and finding them. And then when we did find them and I did the work with them, it was beneficial to us both. And thus that's kept the relationship. It was a great relationship. So you're really coming in with this idea through an educational online portal. What a time saver. What an absolute time saver. Like, I could see this being such a huge way for advisors who are maybe doing this already to turn that over to someone who does a bang up job at it yourself, to try to help these other employees and use it to leverage your time. What have you seen kind of as the biggest benefits to these advisors who have partnered with you?
I really feel like you did an excellent job articulating it right there, Travis. I mean, there's a time and a place still. And I'm not, if an advisor loves going in and doing presentations and doing one-on-ones, well, then by all means do that. But this is an opportunity simply to leverage, and because there's brand new content that's going in on a monthly basis, and there's live events on a monthly basis. So it just is an opportunity to really leverage time and bandwidth, and the leads that come out of it are normally highly qualified. So
yeah, this is such a great idea. I'd love to spend tons of time talking to you more about this. I know we're getting to our time at the end of this show, but I think if you're interested, you want to, partner up with George on this project, this Money Alignment Academy that can help you leverage your time, help you stay balanced with a guy who knows about balance, who has been on both sides of the industry there, being independent and also, having his own RIA, and then, being in the broker dealer world. I think what a great person, what a great resource. And your podcast too, seeing it produced and how well you do it. I think last time we were talking about advisors doing their own podcast and getting out there. So, a thing or three about the marketing, about the power of leveraging content to get this out here and help other advisors. So if they're interested, they want to contact you, they want to get greater balance in their work life and leverage more through the Money Alignment Academy, how can they find you? How can they get in touch with you there?
Yep, certainly just go to moneyalignmentacademy.com. You can check that out. You can send me an email, george@moneyalignmentacademy.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and so you can just connect with me there or shoot me a message, and always thrilled to connect and chat. So,
love it. Thanks for being on the show. Your time is valuable. Thank you for helping other advisors to have a better balance in their life, and for being such a great guy. Thanks, George.
Thanks for having me.